Good morning. I don't want to. And welcome to the May 11 LCB meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Olga Castaño, Chairperson, LBC, and will be sharing the meeting today. I'd like to ask Mrs. Betsy Delano to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Betsy. I'd like to thank you again for joining us today. Ms. Washington is traveling, but she has left us a capable hand with Mr. Slade Downs. We will hear from Mr. Downs in just a moment when he takes us through an agenda review. Before he does that, the Quality Assurance Task Force met last week, and I believe Mrs. Neika Berry has a report from the meeting. Ms. Berry.
Good morning, everyone. Quality assurance. Oh, this would be important. Good morning. Thank you. Our Quality Assurance Task Force, we met April 25th. We reviewed and recommended approval of the draft TDSP major update, as well as the 23-24 TD annual rate calculations. We only had one presentation, which was a CTC update by Mr. Norm Hickling. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 25th here at Metro Plan, and this concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Betty. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Downs, You are recognized for an agenda review and announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning and hi to everyone. Slade Downs. I'm a transportation planner here at Metro Plan Orlando, subbing in for Virginia. I have a bit of TDLCB experience from my previous job, so I've not coming in completely fresh, but it's good to meet all of you. We do have one quick agenda change this morning. In presentations, we following the CTC presentation from Links, we will have Miss Emily Hanna from Bike Walk Central Florida to provide her best foot forward annual update. So one more little fact session for everyone. Following that, we have a couple of staff announcements. I wanted to, give a bittersweet announcement about a member of Metro Plan Orlando staff who many of you have come to recognize over the years. Ms. Kathy Goldfarb has retired after over 13 years of service to Metro Plan Orlando. We are very thankful and grateful for her efforts here at the organization, whether that be, you may recognize her from our lobby or your inbox probably. Kathy has retired. We had a nice little lunch to celebrate her time here and just thank her for her service. So Kathy, if you're tuning in virtually, thank you. If we could just all give a quick round of applause to Kathy for her effort. And on the other end, we've got a new addition to our junior staff. We've got Jason Sartorio, one of our transportation planners. He and his wife, Hannah, recently welcomed baby boy, Henry Sartorio. So congrats to him on his new planner in training. So additionally, I wanted to recognize our communications team at the Florida Public Relations Association. They were recognized recently. They, along with our annual report, received a award, an image award for the annual report. I believe at our last meeting, we got a quick rundown on that, but if not, you can view that on our website. There's as well as a QR code, I believe, over by the agenda area. So take a look at that. It's a quick read. They did a good job. So I believe that rounds out our announcements, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mike Wilson. We've started a new segment at all of our committees, a safety moment. So I'll let him tell you more about that.
Thank you, Slade, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are in the process of kicking off a Vision Zero safety action plan. We received a recent grant from Federal Highway to do a regional plan, which will cover the entire metro area, all 3 counties, and most of the local jurisdictions. And as part of that, we want to get safety messages out there, and we thought we'd start right here at home and within our committees and within this board to get some key messages out there. And those messages are going to be based on the principles of the safe system approach, which is what Federal Highways adopted and what we are using through the Vision Zero planning process, where we want to look at providing for having safer people, safer vehicles, safer speeds, safer roads, and better post-crash care. And then kind of drilling down a little deeper, we're looking at the factors that come into play when it comes to crashes? How can we better manage conflicts in speed? How can we improve upon predictability and visibility and vehicle control? Those are sort of things that are going to move the needle and reduce crashes. And so we'll be pulling from each of these 5 slices of that pie month by month as we come to you with our messages. So our first message is going to be a PSA that was done in Victoria, Australia, about 10 years ago, that illustrates the really profound differences in operating speed and the downstream consequences of those small differences in speed. I will warn you that in Australia and many parts of Europe, when they do PSAs, particularly on traffic safety, they aren't subtle about it. And they tend to be pretty bold and graphic. And so that's what you'll see a little bit of here this morning. I've also added, because this is from Australia, it's in kilometers per hour, and given you a handy conversion chart there, so you can kind of make it all fit in your head. All right, Lisa, if you would go ahead and run the video.
Our job is to reconstruct serious crashes and get evidence that may be used in court. Now, this young woman landed here with serious head injuries. Following the huge force that threw her over 6 metres on the impact here, we can work out she was hit at 32 kilometres per hour by analysing the car and these tyre marks. So he started braking here and first saw it when he was travelling at 65. But let's change one small thing. Now he's doing 60 when he sees her. And this time he hits her at only 5 kilometres per hour. She'd just have a bruised leg. And we'd never have been called to this incident.
So speed has been a real primary concern for us in the safety realm, and we've recently developed a speed management network, which will help us to identify corridors where we can build projects that will get speed better under control and improve safety. So we'll see you next time with our next safety moment. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Arnold. Baldwin. Bates.
Here.
Berry.
Present.
Campbell. Castano.
Here.
Delano.
Here.
Grezik. Pickling.
Present.
Jennings. Kirsty Ledgerwood.
Present.
Melia.
Present.
Oles.
Present.
Olson.
Present.
Radka. Races.
Present.
Smith. Stone.
Present.
Uribe. Witt.
Present.
Zubritsky.
Here.
Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. It is now time for public comments on action items. This is the first of 2 opportunities for public comments on our agenda today. Public comments on action items are here at the beginning of the meeting before action taking, and comments that are more general will be here near the end of the meeting. Comments may be made in person in person or online by those joining us via Zoom. Wishing to comment on action items in person must be complete and speakers introduce card. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. Members of the public joining us virtually who wish to speak should use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called, staff will unmute your microphone and will ask that you state your name and contact information for the record. Ms. Marianne, there anyone online wishing to comment on the action item?
Madam Chair, we do not have any hands raised at this time.
Lisa, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak in person?
I have a speaker card, but it falls with our second public comment portion.
Okay.
After.
Okay, public comments may be also submitted by email or phone message before the meeting. There are any submitted by email or phone? Slate.
We have not received any.
Okay. We have 3 action items this morning. Our first item is approve of the February 9th meeting minutes. They are in tab 1 in your agenda package. I trust you have had an opportunity to review them. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval, Bates.
We have a motion and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passed. Our next item will be presented by Mrs. Trish Whitton with links. Trish will review the proposed mayor updates to the Transit Development Service Plan. Thank you for the present, I'm sorry. It didn't tell me to stop.
Thank you. Good
And,
morning, everyone. I'm Trish Whitten, Senior Planner at Links. I'm going to go over the Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan major update that we just completed. The plan was updated by Links in coordination with Metro Plan, as well as Kimberly Horn is our consultant, and they're here today. I know you've heard a lot about I'll call it the TDSP, so I'll go briefly over the 3 components of the plan. This is also a requirement for funding through the Commission for the Transportation Disadvantaged. So the major updates are every 5 years, and then we do minor updates in the interim years, which are more like progress reports on the majors. So the first section is the development plan, and this section includes the demographics, public participation, our needs, barriers to coordination, goals, objectives, and implementation plan. So it basically says where we are today, where do we want to go, and how are we going to get there. The second section is the service plan, and this outlines how we're doing business when we operate, times a day, eligibility, basically our policies and procedures. And this section also includes the rate structure justification, which is required to be updated annually. And Norm will be going over that in the next presentation. The third section of the plan is the quality assurance section. And this section outlines how Links, the community transportation coordinator, is evaluated at the local level. And I'll say this year is the redesignation of Links as the CTC. So there was a new memorandum of agreement, and there's no evaluation in that this year because of that. So what we did was include the previous year evaluation, which showed no findings in need of corrective action. So some of the major changes in this document, the major update allows us to go back out for public outreach, have meetings, regather our needs, and do a barriers, needs assessment. We also look at the TDE population forecast and see how we're growing, how we're expected to grow over the next 5 years. We update the goals, objectives, and strategies and develop implementation strategies for those goals. We also looked at the service standards and then the rates. So for public outreach, you might remember, I was here in November asking for input. So we got a lot of great input on stakeholders. And we put together a plan, which included a survey. So we conducted a survey. Our consultant, Kimley Horn, called over 400 of our passengers, and we got 87 responses. And so those responses indicate that our passengers are using our system 3 to 5 days per week. They're paying cash. They're calling in to make reservations and mostly going to medical trips. We also conducted discussion group workshops. We had one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and we invited more than 40 stakeholders based on your recommendations, as well as some other contact lists we had. And we had participants, passengers. We had Orange County Public Schools, Career Source, Meals on Wheels, Lighthouse. I might be forgetting, FDOT was there. Might be forgetting some others. And then we also held 3 public workshops around the county. We had a in-person and a virtual option. Sadly, attendance was not good at those workshops. We don't know, maybe it's because of the trip, or maybe we already surveyed them, or maybe they attended the November public hearing here, a public workshop. So what we did was look back on the November workshop comments, because there were a lot of good comments at that workshop. And we compared them to some of the things we'd heard in the survey in the discussion group. And there was a lot of consistency among those comments. So what I'm showing here, these are some of the key themes that kind of popped out through our process. Passengers would like to see they would like to make reservations for TD services before the 24 hours. Right now, they can make them 24 hours in advance. The length of time on the vehicles and call hold times, they would like to see improvement there. We heard a little bit about the online web system maybe not being great for visually impaired, that it needs some improvements to make it a little bit easier to use, as well as map updates. And customers would also like to have smart card payment options, credit cards, or some other form of payment. I do want to mention that Lynx implemented a new phone system in February. So these comments were collected before the new phone system, which has really improved a lot. So, and they're also working on map updates. So some of the things that we heard were currently being addressed. So that's good. But we also looked at the population forecasts and using Bureau of Economic Business Research data. We're showing, Orange County is continuing to increase. It's projected to increase 30% population. I think it was by 2045, Osceola County 50%, Seminole 16%. And then we also do the TD population forecast using the commission's spreadsheets. And that was showing a 13% increase in critical TD trips by 2028. So we put all that together into our needs assessment. And some of the key things that came out is increased demand. Demand is going to continue to increase on the system. So we need expanded services, we need more vehicles, we need more technology to help. We heard a lot throughout the process about technology. Passengers would like to use more of the technology. The barriers to coordination that came out, funding continues to be a barrier to providing more service and more projects, development patterns of getting passengers where they need to go, as well as the ease of use for technology. So as we put the technology out, we need to make sure that it's easy to use. Then we've looked at our goals and objectives. There were 5 goals and objectives in the previous plan, and all except for one of them are still relevant to all of the needs that we heard. So we carried over the same goals, but what we did was expand on the objectives and strategies. So for goal 1, we added in to look at neighbor link zones and when it might be appropriate to provide training or education if someone can use a neighbor link and that's nearby. For customer outreach, we kept in there to continue to attend community events, and then also to provide education on some of those technologies that we have now and that we're looking at deploying in the future so that it's easier to use. Goal 3, community perception, was previously focused on the customer complaint process and making sure that those are addressed within the 14-day standard. And so we went ahead and expanded on that to include some more objectives to look at the web access system, fare payments, options, text messaging, just ways to improve the community perception. Goal 4 is a new goal because the previous goal 4 had been accomplished. So this one was included, and it's basically to continue to look at efficiencies through this process of updating the plan. And goal 5 remains as it was because this one focuses on links departments working internally together as we hear TD service needs to make sure that those are communicated to our service planning department and that they're considered in our future service planning efforts. And so the implementation plan is derived from our goals and objectives. And this does not include everything in our implementation plan. I just pulled out some that address those key concerns that we heard. So we did include to review the TD reservation policy with this board in the future to see if we can make changes. So maybe allow a little bit more time to make those reservations, which may improve call hold time if you have more time to call in. And then the passenger travel time, we want to continue to make these map upgrades, the GPS map upgrades regularly so that the maps are correct. And then reducing the call hold time, continuing to work on those text message alerts, which may reduce on the calls that come into the call center. And then on the web access system, making some of those improvements to make it easier to use, but also providing education and encouraging our passengers to use the system. And we know that not everyone is going to use the system and it's not right for every trip. And people do need to call into the call center, but maybe if we can encourage some of the calls to go through, some of the reservations to go through web access, that might help. And then the smart card, credit card payment, we're going to begin to evaluate what maybe some of the vendor offerings for those payments. We heard credit cards, maybe a card that can be used for different things, including bus fares. And then we looked at in the service standards section of the service plan, we always update our vehicle inventory, our contract providers. And then this year, we also looked at the current service standards that were included to make sure that they're still in line with what we're doing. So there were 2 that really popped out. The first one is call hold time. Our call hold time standard is 3 minutes. So that remains as it is, that our daily average call hold time standard is 3 minutes. But there was this sentence in there about measuring it at 90% of the hourly time period. The phone line is in operation, measured monthly. So we removed that because we're measuring it daily. We're not doing the 90% on the hour. And then public transit ridership included to refer at a minimum of 10% of individuals applying to the fixed route. And we're also not doing that. We refer our passengers to the fixed route based on the eligibility assessment, if they're able to use the fixed route and if they have access to the fixed route. So we went ahead and removed that as well. So our next steps are, we're asking today for a recommendation to approve the plan for submittal to the commission before the deadline of July 1st. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
No questions, seeing none. Thank you for the presentation, Mrs. Winton.
Thank you.
I bring it back to the LBC. Are there any questions? Well, we already said that, right? So remember, please be patient for me. Today's my first day, but I'm very excited and happy to be here.
You're doing.
Thank you. We have do we have a motion? Do we need to take any motion? Okay.
Move approval of the minor updates to the TDSP as stated.
Okay, do we have a second? Sure.
Sorry, for the record, I believe we need to make a motion on a recommendation rather than approval. Is that correct, Lisa? Okay. Yeah, to recommend it to the Metro Plan Orlando board.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so do we have a motion to move it to the board?
So moved. Faith.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna continue. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, aye. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is a review of recommendation of the FY 2023-2024 access links, TD rates. Mr. North Henling.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Okay.
Very simply. After we did all the calculations, we come up with these as you all know, we have a new provider going into contract, and based on those rates that they proposed.
Okay, I just have a quick question. So the 4090 and the 7011, is that a month? rate
No, that's
or
for
week?
each trip. So the,
Oh, for
the
each
new
trip.
rates, if with your approval, and they've already been reviewed by the CTD, just for accuracy. But the $40.45 going into FY 23-24 time frame, that is per trip,
Per trip,
per
thank
trip,
you.
yes. And then the wheelchair is $69.34.
Thank you, Mr. North. I'll bring it back to, do you have something else to, okay, to report? Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Have a wonderful day. I'll bring it back to the LCB. Are there any questions for Mr. Hickling?
Move approval of the lower rate.
Okay, I have a second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, this is a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion passed. Okay, so we have presentations. We're gonna have two presentations. Provide a CTC update.
Good morning again, Madam Chair and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It is a busy time, and I think you will see this a bit of an expanded presentation. We'll talk a little bit about that and kind of go into some of the highlights that we're doing and with our transition to the new paratransit service provider. So this is a little bit different than what the Quality Assurance Task Force saw and we presented to. Only because it's updated information, and we are in the throes of that transition right now. So with that, give you an overview, kind of give you the same information that we've done in the past, the demand for trips, the performance of providing those trips, the customer service activity, and really the call, taking the number of calls, talk a little bit about the challenges that are before us, and then we'll go into a little bit of detail to give you I think hopefully a better understanding as to all the things that are going on with the transition and the mobilization of the new paratransit provider. And then obviously we'll be glad to take any questions that you might all have. So with that, trips continue to increase. The demand for trips is is increasing all the time. And in fact, is on a Thursday today, we are at almost 2,200 trips, which is one of the highest Thursdays that we've had in quite a long time. So we are pushing the boundaries right now. So call center continues to hold or address a lot of calls that are coming in. Paratransit vehicle availability, we'll talk a little bit about that. Still parts and service and new replacement procurement is still a struggle. And then we'll go into detail on the service provider transition with Transdev Services, Inc. So as far as demand goes, you can see in the first 3 months of this year of 2023, we are 23,000 trips ahead of where we were last year. So we are keep expanding. And when you start looking at like Tuesdays and Thursdays, which we always considered our in-week light days, over 2,200 trips, we're busy. We're very, very busy. So a lot of people are wanting to travel, and which is a good thing. And we're glad to provide that service for them. On-time performance right at about 85%. Again, that has to do with some of the fleet availability, fleet age. And so we are trying everything we can, working with our current provider, MB Transportation, to maintain that and not let that degrade. And that's our commitment to you all in this community. Call volume, and it still remains really high at 57,554 calls taken in March. To give you an example, that's a lot of calls. The good news is they are working very hard on that average speed of answer, right at 3 minutes and 13 seconds. It's not perfect all day long, and we recognize that, and we're trying to address those times during those heavy call periods, first thing in the morning and right at 2, or I should say about 3:30 going on to 5 o'clock, when everybody is wanting to call at the same time to get that reservation. But we're also taking calls for ETAs and estimated time of arrivals and et cetera, which accounts for a lot of those calls. The thing I really wanted to bring your attention to, and we've started really looking at this very, very hard, how many calls are actually answered. Now, we always know that, due to bad cell service or somebody hangs up, we don't capture every call that comes in because just maybe they run out of time, they have to get back to work. They called because the ride wasn't there, and all of a sudden the ride showed up, so they were able to get on the ride. But out of all the calls at 57,554, we were able to address and answer 86, a little over 86% of those calls, which is quite a few percentage points higher than before. Sounds like my alarm clock in the morning. So anyways, maybe it's just a ringing in my head, but the challenges that we do have, and we continue, and we've talked about this before, we have an aging fleet. We have a lot of vehicles that are over 200,000 miles, a lot of vehicles that are some smaller, the minivans that have reached their useful life. We are still looking at the state contract with the state of Florida. As soon as they open that up with their contracting process, we'll be able to start buying some vehicles. And just to give you an indication of how many vehicles we want to change out for this fiscal year, FY23, we have 25 vehicles that we want to go procure. And for next year, we are looking at 70 vehicles that we want to procure. And most of the minivans that have reached their useful life will be out of our system, hopefully, depending on how long it takes us to actually receive the new vehicles. We'll never buy small vehicles again. We will buy as big a vehicle as we possibly can to give us a lot more options. Because if you only can put 1 or 2 passengers in a vehicle, while it's, it sounds like, well, we have that vehicle, it really does limit us in the capacity of the number of folks that we can move at any one time. So doing a good job on our eligibility processing. That is, as you can imagine, with the increased amount of trips, we have an increased amount of people that are interested in our service. So, and then we have FTA guidelines that we have to, every application cannot be process longer than 21 days. So that makes for challenging times when you get more and you just can't add the personnel to go process these. But the team is adapted. They've made some process improvements and they're really working on it, and something that we all worked with the Quality Assurance Task Force about the recertifications for those that their condition has not changed. We've streamlined that, which has helped out a great deal. So we're still looking at the process though, and we want to see where we can improve. And then the transition of the existing services. I'll go into that now, but we are going to a company called TransDev Services, Inc. They are international in size. In fact, as they've grown substantially, there was another company providing paratransit contracted services a while back called First Transit, and TransDev was able to procure them. So they've even expanded, and we're under a very expedited schedule, a normal schedule to do a transition. It's anywhere from 90 to 120 days. That would have been a cakewalk compared to what we're doing right now. We're going to do this by June 1, and we started the 1st of June. So we're on a 30-day time clock there. So just to kind of give you some background on this transition, and Nick Barry knows this all too well because she was a part of that evaluation committee, and we appreciate your service to this. But we had a RFP that was out there on the streets. It was out there for several months, and we got several proposers that came back with, gave us their best proposals. Went through about 4 meetings, if I'm not mistaken, to evaluate those proposals. And then ultimately it came down to where on March 23rd of this year, the board said, okay, well, we're going to approve you going and negotiate a contract with TransDev. That was approved on April 27th. That period of time for that contract is 3 years, and that's locked in. Now, there are 2 one-year extensions that are possible. So, but we will have TransDev Services with us for at least the next 3 years, and all things work out. Now, the idea too is to simplify this business model. One of the things in the past, 5 years ago, if you will, Lynx had gone to where they had a contract with a TNC, they had a contract with a taxi company, they had a contract with another paratransit provider, and then they had the contract with, which you're familiar with MV Transportation. Made it very hard to manage all those different contracts, made it very cumbersome. And, you know, one could be doing very, very well, and another one's not doing so good. So your attention goes over to the one that needs a little help, and then you lose sight of the one that's doing very good. This business model is going to put it all under TransDev. You're responsible. If you have subcontractors, that's great. You are going to go manage those, and Lynx will then provide oversight on a continuous basis to TransDev. So we think that streamlining is going to provide a lot better service to our customers and community alike. And then, and as I said, they're the service providers responsible for that oversight. So can TransDev do this transition? They have done 13 transitions in the past year. So they are knowledgeable about that. And just in fact, 3 of those have been from with MV, where they took on that contract. So that's kind of how the business works. You know, one day one company wins, and another day another company wins. So they know how to do these transitions, and we are in the throes of it right now. The startup team is there. We probably have 20 people from TransDev that is at our site right now. We have a 9 o'clock meeting every morning, just internally, just so that we can discuss all the issues on everything that comes up. And trust me, it goes from personnel to software to vehicles to where we're going to do training. Anything you can possibly imagine and more gets discussed at those meetings. And it's a very good working relationship that we have right now. And we hope to have that continue for a long time. We are going to use the LB McLeod facility. That was what the facility that was originally used. It's a little bit bigger. There is a tremendous amount of work going on that right now to make that almost into a brand new facility. There's paint, there's working on the sewers, they're working on the bus wash, et cetera. So it's going to be ready to go by June 1, and TransDev will be all moved in to use that facility and dispatch and schedule everything from there. Employee recruitment's ongoing right now. TransDev had several job fairs on May 4th, May 5th, and May 6th. Excuse me. Reaching out mainly to the folks that are already employed by MV, so that we want as many of those individuals that have been doing a good job, that know the area, know the customers, that they transition over to TransDev. A nice thing about it is I got a bit of a pay boost in most cases for them. So that has been a big help, and just a little bit. And of the operators, 246 of our current operators went to the job fairs. And so they are going through that transition process right now. There are about another 75 that TransDev has identified that they're reaching out, and they're working very closely with the Teamsters Union to go let those folks know that there's opportunities for them. So as many of the drivers, and then that goes with the schedulers, that goes with the dispatchers, and a lot of the maintenance mechanics. These are folks that have already been working the system. They know one day they'll be an MV employee, the next day will be a TransDev employee, hopefully, if they are so inclined. So that was very successful. We had a good turnout, and we're very pleased with that. We don't anticipate any more job fairs, but we do have TransDev HR on site. So if an employee or somebody from the outside says, hey, I want to look at the opportunities available, they can go talk to HR right away and see if they're a good fit for working with TransDev and doing our service. And we have training that's ongoing right now. So we're happy about that. We talked a little bit about the fleet. One of the things you always want to do before you make that transition is make sure the fleet vehicles is in the best condition possible before you transition it over to the responsibility of the other company. So we're doing inspections. And so I want to say thank you again to FDOT. They've been providing assistance on that and identifying some things that we need to look at from a safety standpoint. And again, this is all dedicated to making sure our customers are in the safest vehicle possible. And that also goes for our operators, that when they're operating those vehicles, we don't want them to be out there in bad equipment that potentially could cause harm. So it's taken it very serious. It's a great multifaceted coordinated team, and they're going to get that done. We are a software driven industry, and there's a lot of software that is being done right now. One of the exciting things is some of the software that TransDev has proposed will hopefully help our MSRs when Norm calls in and says, where's my trip? I'm getting nervous. We'll be able to have on our consoles that we have right now, be able to pull up the screen and track that trip instead of having to call over to the dispatching function, wait until they find that trip and then call back or get back, and which will again speed up that or lessen the time on that call, but that'll also lessen the wait time for people trying to make reservations. So we see that as a real benefit, and that's something that we've talked to our TransDev partners about, that we definitely want to make sure that we're meeting that call time frame. And then as anything, finance and the accounting processes and all those implementation things have to be done. And there's quite a few of them. Slita is heading up the compliance procedures, which, as you know, with any government funding, there's regulatory audits and reports that are necessary. So working with them to get that set up. So in closing, we are everybody involved at Lynx is part of this transition team, and things are going faster than I think a lot of us at Lynx ever thought they could be done, which is nice. It's good for all of us. We're having fun with it, but it's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress that's going on right now. The TransDev team is there on site. They are working through all the issues, and they have committed that they're going to be up and running and ready to go by June 1. of 2023. And so your trips that happen that day will be done by TransDev. So that is my presentation. So I'll be more than happy to take any questions that you might all have. And why would I think Marilyn Ball would be the first hand up? So gosh, what a shock.
No idea. I'm hearing everything today. What will be the outreach plan to the disadvantaged disability community? Are you going to write up some type of document or put some type of notice in the vehicles, or are you just going to hope that it's going to be seamless and they won't notice anything? And I hope that's not the plan, because people are already asking and talking.
Well, there is information that's being sent out, and I know Virginia's on distribution of a weekly status report that comes out talking about the transition. I'm hoping she's sharing that with everybody. Our social media folks will also be sending that out. They have already been putting information out about job opportunities and as part of the transition. So that will continue, Marilyn. But we do our job right, it will be completely seamless. When you call, you'll get a reservation, you'll get picked up, like the van on the picture right here, you'll get picked up in that van. And so there'll be other placards out there for any new subcontractors. So you'll be able to identify it as access links. You will see uniforms with a polo shirt that have access links on it. So that's critical to us. But if we do our job right, it'll be seamless.
Very good. And we thank you and your team and everybody that's involved in this, very large transition. And we look forward to a good partnership between our disability community, Access Links, and TransVed. Now, did you say that TransVed bought, and what was the other company?
They bought First Transit, but that
Transit,
has
all
nothing
right.
really to do with us. In this.
I know.
It was just
something you mentioned.
a fact that, they have the financial resources to go get the job done. Yes.
Where did you serve come in? Would they be under that umbrella?
Not necessarily. TransDev is talking to USERV. But again, we have a contract with USERV right now, which will continue for a short period of time until such time that we will start ramping down with them, because we'll be working with TransDev. TransDev is talking to USERV whether they want to be a part of the subcontract team, but that's between those two. Yes,
I have a few questions. Okay.
of course.
Of course. Real quick, do you know if there are plans to increase the number of neighbor links? With the links, neighbor links, are there any plans to increase the numbers of neighbor links?
Not at this time. And the reason, we are in the mode of transitioning into, it's going to be a links operated and run operation and everything. So we won't have it under contract, but the neighbor link system is not under any kind of thought of expansion right now. And unfortunately, it was.
Right.
But the tax initiative, so in that result, but yeah, but that could change depending on funding partners, what they desire. So.
Well, maybe we can go talk to some people. Another question, why is the transition with TransDev so accelerated? Is MV pulling out quicker than anticipated?
It just worked out that way. We
Okay.
tried with an extension. We went to the board and got authorization to work out an extension, but it became very apparent that that wasn't going to work out. So
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that right now.
All right, and as a result of that, will you be able to report back to this board after an appropriate transitioning timeframe, problems that you encountered with the transition in general, and an accelerated one specifically, problems and successes and lessons learned from that? That would be interesting, because 3 years can go by at the blink of an eye. That 3 years sometimes can be 20 years, you never know. So I mean, we've all lived through that. So maybe, whatever you guys figure out that, oh, we shoulda, woulda, coulda, or this went a lot better than we thought, it would be interesting for us to know again, because we hear from people on the street.
And I certainly agree with you 100%. One of the lessons learned was to make sure that we have language in the contract going forward that will provide a stipulated transition time, which was not in the past contract.
Oops,
So, yeah, that's number one.
there you go.
But I'm not sure I'm going to be able to capture all the
No, not
good,
all
bad,
of it,
and
no,
but no,
no.
we can come back. And
But-
I would even, I would want to, invite our trans dev partners to be here. I didn't bring them today
Mhm.
because
They're working.
they're in the trenches right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I didn't want to pull them off and et cetera. But 3 months from now, we can certainly bring them in. We'll have some information on how it's gone.
And that would be helpful, because there'll
Okay.
always be people that, have issues, and those of us that are tied into that level can go back and say, well, this is why that happened, this is what they did to fix it.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be so specific that we're gonna, hang you guys up to dry on it.
No, I don't
But
think
just
that.
to
but-
kind of calm.
No, but we want to have that candid conversation
On the
as
water.
much as we can share. Right.
And one last question, on the telephone issue, is there a dedicated option for ETAs and troubleshooting now? Or is that still just answer the phone and you get whatever person's on the phone with whatever their issue is?
Well, we have dedicated lines for the ETAs. The issue is that our staff right now is multifaceted. So, they can get a reservation call, work that reservation, hang up, thank you very much, Mrs. Smith, and then the next call come in, it's an ETA call, and they have to handle that. The more to the point, if we are on time, after a while, you won't have to worry about the ETA calls. Our ETA calls expanded ever since COVID, and we had the driver shortage, as you all know. We talked about that and the things we had to do. We made the community nervous in that, let's just be honest,
Yeah.
because trips were not showing up on time.
Right.
If we can get to the point where trips are showing up on time within that 30-minute window and people have confidence in us again, then we'll reduce those phone calls. Plus having some tools right on their monitor so that they can look up and answer that question as to where that trip is and where that particular vehicle is and how far away it is. Will save a lot of time also.
Well, if it's 2 letters and it's a big hope, and I understand that. But I think that if people knew that they could call and select option whatever to just go straight to an ETA, waiting to hope that we get the transportation, the vehicles and the transition and stuff, that's got to be your biggest problem, is people complaining about the ETA and the long call.
That's
Yeah.
the number one
That's your
reason for
number
people
one
calling
thing.
in, believe it or
So
not,
if
is
there's a-
ETA.
I wouldn't wait. I mean, I don't say I do a job, of course, but I am. I wouldn't want to wait for that. That's your number one thing. I mean, you have to wait for money for this, that, and the other, people for this, that, and the other, but throwing in a handful of people that just are dedicated to that, the reservationists do their thing. And everybody's, pretty calm.
It's a big problem when you have to wait,
Mhm.
when you're trying to find a way to get the ETA, and you have to go through, wait, for all the other people who are concerned about making a trip reservation. And you have to wait and wait. That is a big problem.
We understand.
Yeah. All right. Just. wanted to-
No, it's
Thank
perfect.
you.
Right, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hickling.
Pleasure.
For your report. Okay, now we move to the presentation from Mrs. Emily Hannon of the Bike Wall Central Florida.
Thank you. So my name is Emily Hanna. I'm the Executive Director of Bike Walk Central Florida. We're a local nonprofit advocacy organization that supports programs and services within a 3-county region to help everybody walk, bike, and roll safely within Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties. Today, I'm going to give you an update on our pedestrian safety program, Best Foot Forward. This program takes a 4E approach to increasing driver awareness of people that need to cross the street. And I will talk through the approach in and of itself and some of those metrics from last fiscal year. This is from October of 2021 through September of 2022. Am I ready to go, Lisa? Okay, cool. So I talked about a 4E approach. Part of that is working with our law enforcement partners on enforcing what we call the driver yield law. It's a state statute, and every driver across the state of Florida and among most of the United States has the responsibility to stop and let people cross the road. It is, they have the right of way. So we remind drivers with our law enforcement partners to do just that. We also couple that with education, going out into the community, doing presentations such as this, and also attending events, also educating on that driver yield law, and also talking to people who walk, bike, and roll in the community about how they can do so safely, educating both sides of that. And then we also do evaluation and engineering. We have data collectors that go out and evaluate the driver yield law. They actually cross the crosswalk that are identified within the 3-county region by our partners, and they collect data on what those drivers' reactions are. And we collect several different variables of data, and we provide that back to our partners on a quarterly basis. And then we support engineering, low-cost engineering improvements to our community so that people can cross the road when they need to, and drivers can become more aware of where those crossings are. This is a snapshot of some of the work that we've completed by the numbers. We hold quarterly enforcement operations throughout the year. The details are 55. That's the number of crosswalks that our law enforcement partners have specifically been at, and have cited over 900 drivers, issued 900 warnings and citations. What I like to say about that is when you get a ticket or you get a warning, you don't just you tell somebody about it, right? You're either upset that you got the ticket or you want to tell someone that you learned something. So hopefully more than 900 people learned about the driver yield law during those enforcement operations. We've also been out in the community, over 91 presentations and events, and have reached almost 20,000 people. That's not just the number of people that attend those events and presentations. That's the actual number of individual conversations we've had about that driver yield law. And then we've monitored over 90 crosswalks across our region, collected over 400 data samples, and have supported 18 different complete street projects across the 3 counties. We celebrated 10 years of success of the Best Foot Forward program last year. And by doing so, we held a summit when we brought the entire region together, all the law enforcement, educational partners, and traffic engineers to celebrate the success of the program. The idea behind the program is it changes driver behavior, like drive sober or get pulled over, click it or ticket. It's reminding drivers of those rules of the road, and changing driver behavior takes time. So celebrating 10 years as a short amount of time of changing that behavior, but something that we felt was a milestone and worthy cause. We also handed out some safety awards. We gave an E award for each enforcement, education, and engineering project or partner within the region. And I'll be happy to say City of Castleberry Law Enforcement won the E for enforcement for their very productive enforcement operations in the city. Leilani with Metro Plan Orlando really helps us with social media and getting the message out. So she won that from Metro Plan Orlando. And then our Orange County partners actually won the award for the engineering improvements that they've made across the county, specific to elementary school crossings and some of the raised crosswalks that they've implemented and brought in. So we're very excited about that success. We have held our second summit in March, and that seems to be a big hit by our partners, and we will continue bringing the region together to talk about these successes and celebrate what we've done to date. Here's some snapshots of our enforcement operations with our various partners. We have large signage that we put out during these enforcement operations. Recently, that signage has changed to remind drivers after they cross the crosswalk that it's their job to stop for those individuals. So they understand through education why we are pulling them over and reminding them of the driver yield law. And our enforcement partners really do enjoy these efforts with us. We provide them all the materials that they need, including a tear sheet that explains the issues, why we're one of the worst in the country at striking people crossing the road, and why it's important for drivers and pedestrians to be cautious of each other. If you haven't seen our big yellow tent out at an educational event, please let us know if you'd like us to attend something in your community. We go out and not only educate, but we try to do different handouts, giveaways, and really try to encourage all different types of people to have conversations with us, kids to seniors, and really try to overemphasize the importance for everyone crossing the road safely. These are the locations within our region of where we're monitoring the data. This is selected through our enforcement and engineering partners every year. And to date, the change in the driver yield rate, or the average driver yield rate, is about 46%, which is a little less than half, but that's growing. So we know we're making an impact in the education that we have on drivers crossing the road. Here's some really great low-cost engineering updates that I really want to give you guys, this specific group. We worked with Osceola County. We attended an event in celebration. There was a woman with MS that was wheelchair bound, and she had difficulties crossing the road because she had to put her wheelchair in the dirt and in grass in order to access the push buttons. And so because of that, we took that story back to Osceola County Engineering. They quickly gave this woman a call, found out her route, and put extended push buttons where her route is. So now she can get to the grocery store, she can go to the pharmacy and the different locations that she needed to get to by easily accessibly accessing these push buttons. So that was a huge win in Osceola County. City of Orlando actually installed a pedestrian refuge island, a safe place for people to wait for the other side of traffic as they cross. And they painted these extended bulb outs and helped fix some of the curb issues that were there. We were out during an enforcement operation, and someone in an electronic assisted wheelchair device had to go into the middle of the road because of how the slope was. So they went out and fixed that based on our observations. And now we've gone out, and now people can cross there safely and not have to be in the middle of the crosswalk in the middle of the road to get into the facility. In Castleberry, this is over by an elementary school. The city installed what we call gateway treatment. These are those vertical deflectors or paddle signs that are installed in the middle of the road and on the side of the road to visually slow drivers down. This had a huge increase in the driver yield rate. They also added some additional signage and striping at the tune of $2,400. And this improved the driver yield rate overnight at an elementary school where we have some of the littlest, most vulnerable road users or crossers crossing at this location. Big shout out to the city of Kissimmee for their installation of some rectangular rapid flashing beacons, those on-demand push buttons that pedestrians and cyclists hit to cross the road to grab those drivers' attention. They installed these at across trail crossings and some school crossings across their city recently that saw a huge improvement in the driver yield rate. We also participated with the city of Kissimmee, or I'm sorry, the city of Castleberry and St. Cloud in some complete street projects, providing the data that we collected, our observations, so that we can improve these projects for the future. We don't necessarily want to have to retrofit all these roadways. If we can make these improvements now, we absolutely should and want to try to do that. We also had a individual from Lighthouse Central Florida reach out to us about some issues she had crossing in College Park. So we were able to pull a team together from the city of Orlando, and they were able to implement some low-cost engineering solutions, some audible pedestrian signals, and then also brought some of those long-term recommendations to the complete street project that's on Edgewater Drive currently. And then also in the city of Kissimmee, we participated in a road safety audit, again, providing that data and observations that our team has on how to improve those facilities for people that walk, bike, and roll. Additional things that Bike Walk has been doing, likely out in your community. Bike 5 Cities was extended this past year to include a 5-mile route and an 11-mile route to be more inclusive. Not everyone can ride 30 miles across 5 cities. And we are doing that again this year. That event takes place October 14th. We're actually doing a soft rollout of registration that'll open actually next week. We launched the Healthy West Orange Trails Connection. This work is to activate, enhance, and promote not only the West Orange Trail on the west side of Orange County, but also to identify potential connections to health providers specifically, also parks and recreation schools to make it easier for people to walk, bike, and roll, and then also to work with these communities to put on events so that we can really promote that active transportation. We're in the middle of those projects right now, so you'll likely see more of that to come as we get further involved with those stakeholders. We worked with Dr. Phillips last year in the Packing District, which was a new 100-acre redevelopment project. They asked us to come in and identify trail connections within their project. But we not only did that, we said, well, how do we connect externally to other trail segments in downtown Orlando? And then further to the west side within the Pine Hills community, which eventually connects to the Coast to Coast Trail. So we were able to provide a design and do a feasibility study of providing those connections from the Coast to Coast Trail all the way to downtown Orlando, Creative Village, and then also over to Edgewater Drive and Ivanhoe Village. We've conducted some pop-up events, including some bike rodeos and helmet fittings across the region. We were awarded, one of our educators was awarded Educator of the Year from the Florida Bicycle Association, which was a huge win for us as well. And then internally, we've been working on some things to improve Bike Walk Central Florida as a nonprofit. Our board members have really committed to supporting not only through technical expertise, but through volunteer hours. They've clocked over 370 hours last year. We also were very cognizant about how we look to external funders so that we can apply for grants on behalf of our community partners. And we were awarded the Platinum Transparency Award from Candid, which is the highest honor that you can receive from a watchdog site for nonprofit transparency. And then earlier this year, we received the platinum status from for a bicycle-friendly business from the American League of Bicyclists. So we are very excited about that. And we will be actually celebrating all of the businesses that won that award, including Metro Plan Orlando just this last week, or I believe this week, that won silver at our upcoming Wheel of Achievement Awards, again, celebrating the successes that we do have in our community. So with that, I thank you as always for your support of our organization and the work that we do. And I'm open to any questions that you might have. Thank you. Thank you.
I apologize. Unfortunately, I have to leave, but I have all sorts of questions and suggestions as an individual who was hit by a car in a crosswalk a month ago. It opened my eyes. But yes, are there, or who do we go to suggest to law enforcement that they keep an eye on a road? Because there are certain roads that my patients have to cross regularly, and they will talk about, oh, I almost got hit again. Oh, I was in the crosswalk. Yeah, it hadn't even started flashing yet. It was still the walk light, and someone blew right by me, So yes, I guess bottom line is not to waste any time, and unfortunately I have to leave. But can I call you and ask you a whole slew of questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I will give you my business card on your way out so that you can call me directly and we can have those conversations. To answer your immediate question, though, certainly reach out to your law enforcement partners directly. We do work with them with identifying where they have the most community complaints when we do assess the locations for crosswalk data collection, enforcement, and engineering. But also let me know as well, because I can bring those comments to those meetings, especially if you don't think that you can't get through the law enforcement partner, or they seem to have a lot of those complaints, unfortunately. But we can hone in on those and make sure that they're a priority.
And unfortunately, it's just figuring out who to talk to, who the right person to talk to is.
Understood.
And so that's why I hope to glean a lot of information from you.
Yes, we have all of the motor units, numbers, and email, so we can definitely provide that to you so that you can have the best contact for your law enforcement partner.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Hollywood, and my problem sometimes is landscaping. Now, beautiful communities, as most of them are in Central Florida, and you got a darn tree right in the middle of the sidewalk with a cutout. And if I can't get exactly between the edge and there, then somebody's going to have to lift me out, with a cherry picker or something, And I just wonder if you encounter that a lot. What can be done? I mean, you certainly want it to stay pretty. And unfortunately, there's a bike lane there on Edgewater Drive. And so I can go out into the bike lane, but I you know, I'd rather not.
Right.
And I agree with the person who talked about the slope sometimes. Sometimes the cutout is, you know, the angle is too much. And I'll go in the street then too, because I can tip over, you know, and again, cherry picker time, you know, what can you say? So,
Absolutely. So when we do our observations, when we send our data collectors out, they do look at ADA access. They do look at the curb ramps. They tell whether or not those domes that are there are broken or maybe
Right.
missing. We do make those comments. If we feel like the vicinity of the sidewalk is restrictive by landscaping, we will make those notes to the partners as well. We communicate that on a quarterly basis. So we do try to, you know, let the partners know. Sometimes when we're actually out with the partners, they will maintain that landscaping right then and there. So they are on it when it comes to providing those notes to them. They're not always out walking and biking, so they don't know necessarily if that landscaping is an issue. But if there's a specific area of concern, let us know. We can relay that back to the partner and have them go out and look at that from a maintenance issue. But typically when we're out, and we're out doing this data collection 6 times a year at all of these different crosswalks. So we're out there as regularly every other month, trying to see if these little things like landscaping, signage being down, trash cans in the way, those types of things, we make those notes so that maintenance and operations can take care of them on a regular basis.
and al fresco dining, cafe dining, you know, I know from the business perspective, you want people to enjoy the weather and eat out. But maybe if nobody's in these tables, move the chairs around so you can get by, you know, because I have moved them out of the way with my hand or my vehicle, depending on my mood at the moment.
I do that with micromobility downtown. You see the
There you
scooters
go.
everywhere. So I often pick them up and move them over so
There
that it
you go.
gives the sidewalk plenty of room. But those are comments and things that,
Yeah.
again, we can take that
Okay.
back to the partners. They might be able to communicate that to the business because they are supposed to
Yeah.
provide the 36 inches, which isn't really enough, but that's the minimum,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, just keep an eye out, that's all, you know, I don't want to interfere with anybody's business, but if, you know, nobody's eating there, then move it over a little. you
Right.
know, What the heck? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, any other questions? Okay,
Wait.
Not a question, but.
Okay, not a question, but a comment. Want to thank you for the partnership that you and MetroPlan provide every October when we do Blind Americans Equality Day. And just the education that we continue to give about the Florida White Cane Law and the safety of blind and mobility impaired pedestrians. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. We appreciate the partnership.
well, I want to thank you, Ms. Hannah, for the report and for the wonderful job that you and your team are doing. Please let me know when are you going to be in Kissimmee doing an event there. If you
Yes,
could give me your business card, that would be great.
absolutely.
Thank
I'll
you
leave a
so
couple up
much.
with Lisa. Thank you.
All right. Okay, there is no general information items before us today. Please take note of the upcoming events of interest. So Metro Plan Orlando Board meeting will be Wednesday, June 14 at 9 a.m. Metro Plan Orlando meeting Wednesday, July 12 at 8 a.m. Quality Assurance Task Force meeting will be Tuesday, July 25th at 10 a.m. Transportation Disadvantage Local Coordinating Board will be Thursday, August 10th at 10 a.m. Commission of Transportation Disadvantage Annual Expo in Orlando will be August 29, 2030 for this year. Now we are now a member comments. Are there any comments, members who have any final comments? I'm sorry. Is there any comments from the members? No? All right. So we have now come to our second public comment period. If any member of the public wish to comment, and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized. Or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt to unmute your microphone. After you are recognized, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 2 minutes. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have a hand raised by Haley Skoglund online, and I'm going to unmute the microphone so we can hear the comment now.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Haley Skoglund. I joined this meeting today because I am a user of Access Links. I am blind, so I use Access Links every day to and from work. And I just have a couple of thoughts and takeaways after, being an avid user of the program for the past month or so. And I was looking for, a forum to share some of these thoughts and ideas I've had after, really getting to know the program and using it. And so, just wanted to bring a couple of things that I have experienced to light. So one of the biggest things that I experience using Access Links every day is that I don't get phone calls from drivers. And because of that, I can end up waiting literally waiting on the curb for up to 2 hours sometimes. So a potential, improvement for the future of it that I'd like to bring up is having, implementing a policy where drivers call in advance, just tell the driver's name, what vehicle they're in, if they're running on time or a little bit behind, just so I'm not just waiting on the curb for hours, not knowing where my ride is or if they're even going to show up. Because most of the time I'm the one having to call and say, hey, is someone coming? And sometimes that doesn't happen. So that's my biggest thing. And then, on those days when the wait time is over an hour, I was thinking, I was talking to some other drivers, and I was wondering about the potential to implement some kind of ride voucher for if a ride is over an hour late or if it's canceled or, there's no drivers available, just so we're not leaving people stranded on the side of the road. And so those are just a couple of things that, I had noticed. Also extremely long wait times on the phone on hold when I call to schedule my rides for the week. I wait up to 40 minutes on the phone on hold every time I want to schedule a ride. And as someone where Access Links is my primary way and my only way of getting around and getting to work every day and getting home, it's a huge problem. So really appreciate all of your guys' work on this program and for giving that an option for people like me to be able to get around, and just looking forward to how we can continue to improve the system. And if you guys would ever like to reach out to me, I'm happy to advocate and to speak up as a user and give any thoughts I have to try to improve what we already have, a great system. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. It's very appreciated that you take from your time to, let us know. I don't know if we could take your information, how to do that. So that
Yeah, absolutely. If you have an email, I can send you guys an email with my contact information.
It will show up on the attendee report, the email address that she logged into the meeting with.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So somebody will contact you. Thank
Perfect,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Have a wonderful day. Okay, let's move on. Do we have any members of the public attending in person who wish to make a public comment?
Madam Chair, I've received a speaker request from Ms. Joanne Canellis.
I live at 324 Claremont Avenue, Lake Mirror, Florida, 32746. Yes, we need 24-hour bus and train service. Yes, even fix it out, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime, on and off peaks. Please, thank you. And we need, I need a bus over at the Estella Road, since I live in Lake Mary anyway, Cheryl. And again, because every time I go out there on Sundays or holidays, I had to walk. That's not right. It's not so cool. And we need a bus back at Oviedo Boulevard. I'm sure that's right by the swimming pool I go to. And we need a bus over at the Lake Mary Prep School and all this good stuff like that. Please, thank you. And you need it every 15 minutes so that no one be stranded like we do now. So that my feet don't get hurt anymore and my legs don't get hurt either. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Okay, have a
Anytime.
good day. All right. Are there any writing comments that were submitted before the meeting?
We've not received any, Madam Chair.
Okay, our next meeting will be August 10. It will be held here at the Metro Plan Orlando at 10 o'clock. Is there any other business before us today? Okay. In my notes, it says August 10th.
That's the full board meeting.
So,
Okay.
so it looks like that will be the meeting of the Quality Assurance Task Force in
What you mean, it's saying
in July
In July.
29th.
The 10th is our meeting, our board meeting.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now we stand to adjourn.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. God bless you all.
All right.
And thank you for being patient with me.